G'day trendsetters, I'm John with Gravel Cyclist. I'm coming to you today with a long-term review of Shimano's GRX Di2, the world's first gravel-specific group set featuring an electronic shifting drivetrain. There is also a mechanical version which I will likely feature in a future video. I've been aboard this grip set and this bike, the Pivot Vault, since late August of 2019, and additionally I've been using the grip set aboard this bike, the T-Lab X3 Titanium Adventure Bike. You can see reviews of both of these bikes linked in the description below. My review period has seen me take these bikes to places near and far, from the Australian Outback to the high mountains of Falls Creek in Victoria, Australia, to the mountains of Montana, and down to the southeastern United States in Florida and Georgia. In both cases, I'm talking about the 2x specific version of Shimano GRX Di2, although I have ridden the GRX 1x Di2 version on Specialized all-new Diverge for 2021, and you can see that video also linked in the description below. The Shimano GRX Di2 1x and 2x systems are almost identical, obviously missing a front derailleur with a 1x, more on that later. Unfortunately, I've never received GRX Di2 in kit form, so I cannot provide you with individual component weights, but there's plenty of other websites that have featured those details. So enough intro jibber jabber, let's cover some of the techie details, starting with the shifting. I've kept everything default for the shifting experience, barring the shifter buttons at the top of the hoods, which can all be tweaked within Shimano's eTube software. Shimano's GRX Di2 shifting is flawless. It works all the time, every time. Your only concern is going to be battery life. You can check the battery status very easily. Assuming you're on the small chainring, hold down the button to drop the front derailleur to the small chainring, and you see the battery status right there. Honestly, if you deplete the battery, I believe it's your own silly fault. So be diligent about checking the battery before each ride. On the subject of the battery, which powers the system, there is one battery. Like most modern bikes, the battery is usually housed within the seat post, and in my experience, I average about 2,000 miles or about 3,000 kilometers per charge. Obviously, that's going to depend on how much use you have with the front derailleur, because that does utilize more energy to perform that shift. Where the shifting is most improved is with the shifting experience itself from these levers. The hoods are so comfortable riding on top, and as you can see, there's a very pronounced hook, so it's not like you're going to lose your hand if you're jarred, then lose the grip on the bar. There is plenty of grip on top of the hoods. I never use gloves unless it's very cold, so that's a good thing for me. And you can easily reach the brake levers from this position and also from the drops. Incidentally, the pivot is higher on Shimano GRX Di2, so that means less effort to affect the brake action from the hoods particularly. And here, you've just got so much more power, even one finger braking from any position. In fact, I believe these shifters set the benchmark for comfort among any shifter available on the market today, among every brand. And to affect the shift, by default, that goes down the cassette, this button goes up the cassette, and you can also map these buttons on the top of the hoods, either side, to perform functions such as shifting, or if you have a D-fly module, you can also have these buttons paged through your computer display. So that saves you manually touching the computer display. You can do everything from the handlebars. That's a very cool feature. Also, the reach of the brake lever can be adjusted, but I have mine left in the default position. Here's another look at the buttons I made reference to from the tops of the shifters. So like that. If I was building a disc brake road bike nowadays, I would spec these shifters on the road bike. In fact, I reckon Shimano should just get this shifter and apply it to all the road groups. Dura-Ace, Ultegra, etc. These shifters are just so good. These marvelous shifters still maintain their comfort even on flared bars. In this case, this is the Shimano Pro Discovery bar. It's a little bit narrow in hindsight, it's 40 centimeter center to center. By default, I like to ride 42 centimeter center to center. That point aside, it's very comfortable on the drops and very comfortable on the hood, so I can easily brake shift and there's no discomfort with weird angling of my hands, etc. This is the medium flare of the handlebars and it is the least flared bar that Shimano offers in their Pro range. This bike also has additional shifters, so I can shift from the tops of the handlebars, just like that. like that. So the right side's programmed to go down the cassette to a harder gear, the left side up the cassette to an easier gear. And with this bike setup, I can brake and shift at the same time from the tops of the handlebars. Since I just talked about shifting gears from the tops of the bars, it's time to talk about braking from the tops of the handlebars. Now this option is not for everybody, and some people love them, some people hate them. This is effectively a cross-top type brake lever, but Shimano has released the GRX version of what I call the cross-top. It's an inline brake lever, it's fully hydraulic, and it allows you to brake effortlessly with 2 fingers or 1 finger, what have you, from the tops of the handlebars. It gives a great option, I think. And if you're descending, this can often get tiring in the drops over a long period of time. So it's nice to sit up a little bit, stretch your back out, and you can do brake from here. I also find it's very comfortable just to rest your hands on top of these brake levers if you're cruising along. So that makes another option for hand position. Obviously you're going to lose a little bit of handlebar real estate with these inline levers, so they won't be for everybody, but they are definitely a great option for some folks. As I mentioned earlier, Shimano adjusted the pivot point of these brakes so there's less effort to affect braking action. In fact, there's no more of that hyperspace feeling like with the original Shimano hydraulic road shifters. You get brake pad almost immediately. Now that will depend on how your brakes are bled, but that's a feeling I really like. Powerful modulated braking on all positions of the handlebar, no matter your riding style. I've done a ton of crazy descending on this system and it's been 100% reliable the entire time. In fact, on the subject of descending, be sure to check out my video in the description below for tips on descending on a gravel bike, including pointers from Dave Zabriskie. Shimano has years of experience perfecting mountain bike hydraulic braking, and it's pretty obvious that this tech has crossed over to GRX. The brake calipers themselves are part of the Shimano GRX group set, but I believe they are rebadged road calipers, possibly from the Ultegra line. That doesn't matter too much because primarily Shimano has not created some kooky new braking standard. I've tried 160mm center lock rotors with this group set. I've also tried 6-bolt weight weenie brake rotors in the background there, and 140s like on the rear of the T-Lab X3 Titanium Adventure bike. In all instances, the brakes have been fantastic. They've worked on every single rotor, no complaints whatsoever. Honestly, I don't think there's much point in using 140s, even on the rear of the bike. It's kind of a pointless weight saving. It saves a little bit of grams, but braking is better if you've got a bigger surface area, so I recommend 160mm rotors front and rear. Despite this being a 140 on the rear, I've never had any hassles with brake fade on any size rotor or any tight rotor that I've used with the GRX Di2 system. Since I took collection of the pivot and the T-Lab, I haven't done any maintenance of any kind, bleeding and so on. That speaks volumes, especially for the T-Lab, which was my bike that I flew to Australia, in addition to a side trip involving another flight whilst I was there. And if you like one by, turn away right now. I don't know why you'd contemplate even building a bike with just one derailleur nowadays, especially with how good these 2-by derailleurs are, particularly on the GRX Di2 system. Allow me to demonstrate how good the shifting is. I think that's a pretty good demonstration of how good this system shifts between chainrings. More positives about the 2-by, you've got more gear range options having 2 chainrings. I don't understand why you would want to handicap yourself riding just one chainring when you saw how well this system shifts between chainrings. The rear derailleur has been designed using Shimano's shadow concept, which means low profile. The derailleur keeps closer to the frame, which is a big positive for gravel cycling, and I can attest firsthand that it works because I've laid down the T-Lab bike taking photographs, and on both occasions the derailleur hanger is straight and shifting is bang on perfect. And the wiring is very tough too. I had a tree branch catch hold of the rear derailleur wire before I had it zip tied to the frame. It doesn't look so elegant. However, the cable got jammed between the frame and the cassette. I stopped immediately, pulled it out of the frame. There was some damage and almost got down to the wires themselves. This is a 2-wire system inside this housing, but it still shifted flawlessly. So that speaks well for how tough the wiring of the system is. The rear derailleur features a mechanical clutch. This is the on position and this is the off position. I choose to ride this derailleur most of the time in the off position, and I have not adjusted the clutch from its default settings out of the box. In fact, the only time when I use the clutch is when I'm expecting mud or I've got a rocky, gnarly descent ahead of me. I've never really noticed drag on the drivetrain when the clutch is on, assuming the default clutch settings, but you can notice a drag a little bit when you've got the bike on the work stand. Now with that said, I've never had any chain drop with the clutch off or the clutch on. Of course, the biggest advantage of having the clutch is to resist chain suck, which is the horrible phenomenon that happens when you're running usually a small chain ring and you're riding in disgusting mud and the chain sucks up on itself. This system will prevent that. Effectively, the clutch makes the drivetrain taut. The clutch can be adjusted, but I've never had the need to do that, but Shimano covers that procedure in their technical documentation. If you do choose to put more tension upon the clutch, remember this will equate to drag on the drivetrain, so adjust carefully and always on the work stand. Out of the box, Shimano Stasis derailleur, which is the 2x specific model, can shift up to a 34 tooth cog. I've proven in another video that you can shift up to a 40 tooth cog using this derailleur by simply adjusting the B screw. Now Shimano does not recommend that, so try at your own peril, but I have linked that video in the description below. Incidentally, most of the time I like to run a Shimano 11 to 32 cassette. This derailleur does not have the same brute power as the Shimano XTR Di2 derailleurs, but it's not far off. I don't like the shift under load, but GRX Di2 does it well anyway. All you have to do is push the shift button. A real quick note about the 1x GRX Di2 system. I found the gearing to be limited when I rode the Specialized Diverge in Girona, Spain. The 11 to 42 isn't really low enough, especially if you're toting around, say, a 40 tooth front chainring. This is surprising considering they do produce an 11 to 46 cassette, and in my mind this is just another reason why I say don't bother with 1x and all of its limitations, just get 2x and not have to worry about it. And this brings us to the 810 series GRX crankset, which features 4831 chainrings. As I illustrated earlier, the front derailleur just bangs shifts through the chainrings, and those chainrings are pinned and ramped in Shimano's usual Genius style. The crankset isn't a work of art, think functionally, but I reckon the 48 could be a smidge too big for some riders. Now, if you desire one bike and two pairs of wheels to say do it all, for example gravel tyres and roadie tyres, the 48 tooth chainring is brilliant. You can hang with a roadie bunch and you can descend fast on pavement. The 31 tooth small ring is low, but I'd rather have a smidge lower with a 30 tooth chainring. Likewise, I'd prefer a 46 tooth big chainring. I believe that is the perfect 2x big chainring size, and I've never wanted anything bigger, even on fast gravel descents. Now Shimano does offer a 4630 chainring pair, but you have to purchase the 600 series GRX to get that crankset. I hope Shimano ups the ante on the 800 series soon and provides a 4630 option here. If there has to be a negative of this system, it's relating to the installation and running of the wires, but that is a one-time deal, and for most complete bikes purchased from a dealer, that isn't a problem. Tinkerers like myself enjoy bike setup, so again, a moot point. In a nutshell, in my opinion, do not try GRX Di2 unless you plan to buy it. I honestly think it's that good. At the time of this video, I believe it is the best drivetrain system going, designed specifically for gravel cycling. I've been riding Di2 since the very first 10-speed generation was released, and since that time it's just gotten better and better. One thing about electronic shifting that is a huge advantage is the amount of energy it can save. For example, at a race such as Dirty Kansas 200 miles of seriously tough gravel cycling, you can expect to change gears over 3,000 times on a system such as GRX Di2. The amount of energy saved, assuming you are using a 2x, just from that motion to that motion, is huge. That is energy that you can use better elsewhere. That's Shimano GRX Di2 covered. I realize there's many group sets available at the time of this video, so I hope that my review went some way into helping you make an informed purchase decision. Thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the Gravel Cyclist YouTube channel, and don't forget to click the bell button to be notified of future videos as they appear on the channel. I'll see you in the next video.